here, and welcome to another edition of the Report, the NAIA Women's Basketball Podcast episode. I don't even know what it is now. I think it's episode 29. It's been a lot. I know that much. I know we're getting closer to episode 30. I'm pretty sure it's episode 29. So we're gonna get into it with kind of a special Saturday edition of the Hoop Report. I know normally we do Mondays and Thursdays, but wanted to say this one, we're going to get right into a very interesting Saturday here. I think there's a lot of games that we could talk about, and we're going to talk about a lot of them, but we'll stop on three main ones, kind of my three interesting games of this Saturday. And then I'll touch on about five others, just quick, brief touches on those for other reasons, whether it's, and I'll kind of introduce a new segment in our in this episode called Call Out, where I'm going to be, kind of challenging, putting a little bit of pressure on some teams. At times, it could be some players, but right now it's going to be on a few teams that I feel like need to perform this Saturday evening or this Saturday afternoon. Again, this is really our first real conference Saturday. I know we've had plenty of conference games already on Saturdays throughout the season, but this one being kind of, now I think every conference is played except two. We do have some conferences like the Sun, for example. We played our 3 games, and that's it until the spring. Then we have a few other conferences who have obviously more teams, the AAC, the Heart, those kind of conferences who have continued to play throughout the rest of the fall semester and into December, obviously, with this Saturday being their first crack at it. But there are only 2 conferences that have not played yet. That's the Mid-South and the CalPAC. Those 2 will start in January, and then will officially be fully in full swing when it comes to conference play. But this Saturday, I feel like, is the first one with so many things. We do have an idea of some of these teams now. We have an idea of who's kind of separating themselves from the pack, who's kind of still in the pack that we thought maybe could be out of the pack, and a few other things in between, obviously. But like I mentioned, we're going to talk about my 3 most interesting games this Saturday. We're going to go in order of least interesting to most interesting. My least interesting one, in my opinion, doesn't mean I think it's going to be a bad game, but there's just a little bit less to it, is going to be Indiana Wesleyan versus Receiving Boats Huntington. This game's going to be starting at 1 p.m. Eastern time, so plenty of time for you guys to get into this one. Both teams kind of coming into it, they've had similar path. Indiana Wesleyan obviously hasn't been the same that we've seen in the past, or better said, isn't necessarily having the season you would thought a national runner-up team would have the following year. Obviously, losing to Dordt last year in the national championship game, you thought they'd come out a little bit more polished this year. Injuries have riddled this team since the beginning. We've talked about it at length, and we understand that, but at the same time, we got to take what the season is going for right now. And right now, it hasn't been that great of a season. Now, they are coming off of a huge, and I cannot emphasize how huge it was, win over St. Francis, number 6 in the country, to hand them their first loss of the season, to get themselves another conference game under their belt for the regular season. That was a massive game. That game, honestly, might right the ship. A lot of times, and that's kind of the first note I have for Indiana Wesleyan, they have a chance of righting the ship right now in front of them. They obviously lost to Taylor, who, before they were receiving votes in an upset a few weeks ago. You've lost really every other top 25 game aside for top 25 and or ranked game that you've played this season, because now you're 1-3 in those top 25. That one being this past week against St. Francis, this past Wednesday against St. Francis. So this is opportunity now to have another ranked win under your belt against a Huntington team that we'll get to in a minute, but hasn't had the greatest season either. It can be a very up for grabs game, in my opinion. I also think that for Indiana Wesleyan, it's not so much the numbers, it's just the momentum thing. I do have a few stats when it comes to the Huntington side of things and some of these other teams right now. But for Indiana Wesleyan, they're really, the reason I put them as an interesting game for this Saturday is because momentum is a real thing. Y'all have heard me talk about it all year when it comes to how a team is playing, how a team is doing the past 2-3 games, positively or negatively. So for the Indiana Wesleyan, you come off of a win like that where you hand number 6 team in the country their first loss of the season, and pretty dominant, that was a dominant win. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. That was a win that I didn't have on my bingo card. I'm not saying I thought St. Francis would blow out Indiana Wesleyan, but I thought it would be a lot closer. I thought it would be a lot more of a competitive game, but it was wire to wire, in my opinion, Wildcats basketball all the way through. Could this be, from a momentum side of things, a righting of the ship? Now they got good confidence going into this game. Now they've got a stranglehold. I feel like they haven't really felt that control of the season so far. I will also say, not only was the injuries a thing, you're also playing a really tough non-conference schedule. I mean, 5 or so games in, you already have maybe more, we'll say 7 or so games in, you already played the number 2 team in the country in Bethel and the number 3 team in the country in Campbellsville in back-to-back games. So you've also had a really tough schedule from that standpoint. So the record that they have now does not necessarily reflect who they really are. I think they're a lot better than what the record shows. But again, you're going to get compared with the best when you are one of the best. And for me, this is a game for Indiana Wesleyan. Can they use the momentum from their last game to carry over into this game? Now you get two wins back to back in conference against very quality opponents. Now we've kind of got some momentum heading into the new year when things really start to get interesting. We're talking about January, February, and going into the postseason for conference. On the other side of the things, for the Foresters, for Huntington, they're 1-2 versus top 25 teams right now. That one win came at an upset against Indiana Tech. That's a very notable thing because Indiana Tech, in my opinion, has had a very solid season. Nothing above what I kind of expected, but they've been a little bit above expectations. So I don't think they've had an amazing season, but I do think that they've had a very solid season all the way through. Obviously, their WAC play has started off with a couple wins under their belt already, and they are still the team to beat in the WAC as far as I'm concerned. Huntington is on a 3-game winning streak. In those 3 games, they're averaging almost 80 points a game at 79 points, and they're holding opponents to 65 points or below. Very good on both sides of the ball right now. For the Foresters, in their own right, have a chance of riding the ship a little bit here because now you get a win over Indiana Wesleyan. Now you've got 2 ranked wins under your belt against top 20 teams respectively, because I believe Indiana Tech at the time was number 17, I want to say. Might have been 17. I know they were definitely top 20. And then, obviously, Indiana Wesleyan right now being number 19. You can do that. That really helps. Those 2 other games, I believe I counted the receiving votes teams as, I always count them as ranked teams in my opinion. And so those 2 losses coming, I believe, were against Cumberland, and I'm blanking on the other one. But I think it was Lindsey Wilson. Those 2 games, it kind of helps. In my opinion, if you're 2-2 in top 25 / ranked wins, and the 2 wins are against top 25 teams, while the 2 losses against receiving votes team, I think that'll weigh a little bit better in your case. So I'm looking at this opportunity for them to be able to build off of a very solid season so far. They're 5-0 at home. That's including the Indiana Tech win that they had. So at home, the Foresters are one of the best teams in the Crossroads. You look at their numbers, they're putting up almost, I mentioned 79 points per game in these last 3 games specifically. At home, that's what they put up on the regular at 78.4. And you compare that to what they do on the road at 72.5, there's a noticeable difference there. They play very well in front of their home crowd. They beat off the home crowd energy. So this is going to be a very tough game for Indiana Wesleyan from a standpoint of going into hostile territory, and hostile with a capital H, and trying to come out with a very, very gutsy win. I'll give my pick of who I think will come out with this one, but it's going to be a close game. I don't see it being more than 3 possessions max, barring anybody or any team having an out-of-worldly experience shooting the ball or anything like that. I do have a few key players to keep in mind for both teams. For Indiana Wesleyan, I'm looking at Addie Hovey. 13 points a game, almost 45% from the field, 7 rebounds. She's coming off of her second 20-point performance of the season. She has had one of the best seasons of anybody in the Crossroads. I'd put her up there with anybody in the countries right now. She has had such a just seamless transition into this Wildcat team. When I was watching that game against Indiana Tech a few weeks ago, when obviously Indiana Wesleyan did lose, it felt like every other time something great happened for Indiana Wesleyan, especially in that 4th quarter on their runs and the big shots, it was Addie Hovey. Like, that was what I kept hearing the announcers say. That's what I kept seeing with my own eyes. The box score kept saying that she has clearly taken the stranglehold and been in a year of ups and downs and a roller coaster, so to speak, for the Wildcats. She's been a pretty constant source of offense, constant source of just calmness about her and about this team. So she's going to be my key player for sure for the Wildcats to have a great chance at coming out with a victory. On the Huntington side of things, I'm looking at Anika Nelson, 12 points per game, 43% from the field, 41% from the 3-point line. She's averaging about 5 rebounds a game as well. On this 3-game winning streak specifically, she's putting up 17 points on almost 46% from the field. So she's found a very nice groove as of late, and it's translated to wins. So I do see her being the catalyst for a Huntington win in the close margins. Again, I don't see this game going more than 3 possessions. I do have Indiana Wesleyan coming out on top in this one. I'll get to in a minute why, but I do have the Wildcats coming out in a 3-possession game, whether it's 6 points, 8 points, somewhere in that realm, 9 points. That all to me is 3 possessions, because again, you go 9 points, that's 3 threes. That's 3 possessions in my book. So that's kind of where I see this game going, and those are 2 players for both respective teams that I think need to have good games. They need to have good games just to keep it close, just to give their teams reasons or belief in them to win that game. For them to actually win the game, obviously you got to have a lot more contribution from both sides of the ball. You got to have a lot more things go right. And again, the key stats for this one, offensive rebounds and turnovers. Those are the two numbers I'm going to be looking at, 2 stats I'm going to be looking at in the box score when it's all said and done. Why? For Indiana Wesleyan, they're averaging about 13 offensive rebounds per game, and Huntington's averaging about 10. Now, yes, it's a 3 offensive rebound difference, but in the game where I said you're looking at about 3 possessions, those 3 possessions could be the deciding factor. And obviously, you're not going to score off of every offensive rebound you get, but the more you get, and especially in this case, both teams, I would say, have a comfortability when it comes to getting offensive rebounds. Like, it's part of their offense. They put a good amount of emphasis on it. The question is going to become who can get that extra one down the stretch, who can get those extra few down the stretch. So that's why it's going to be a box score kind of looking at, for me, of what team was able to control the offensive glass better. And on the flip side, who was able to control the rebound as a whole from the defensive side of things as well. The other stat I'm looking at, turnovers. IU was averaging 14, Huntington's averaging 17. So again, a 4 turnover difference, but I'm gonna be honest with you guys, 17 compared to 13, just looking at it feels different. You know, there's certain scores in basketball where it's still 9 points, but just because the 2 numbers that we're talking about, it just feels different. It looks different. Those 4 turnovers could be the difference in this game. And I'll even round it up and say 14 to 17, because talking about 0.9 and 0.3 respectively for these teams, still 3 possessions. Like, that's why I feel like 3 possessions is going to be the number when it's all said and done. Who comes out with 3 more possessions offensively, defensively, a mix of both, than the other team when it's all said and done. It's going to be a great game. I'm excited to see this one. I think it's going to be all the way through. Even if a team does get a nice lead early on, I would not be surprised if that lead evaporates and goes the other way. This is going to be a game that if you don't play your full 40, it will come back to get you. I do have IU coming out in the 3-possession victory, but I do think it's going to be close all the way through, and I'm excited to watch this one. Heading over now to the next game that a little more interesting in my book for other reasons, but not the most interesting. Receiving Votes Loyola versus UT Southern. Right, this will be at 12 p.m. Central Time, so that'll be 11 o'clock. It'll be 1 o'clock Eastern Time. Teams are 3 and 4 right now, respectively, in scoring at about 73, 71 points per game. Loyola at the high end on that one. For UT Southern, to me, you're looking to make a statement, and I think it comes at a perfect time because you're on a 2-game losing streak right now. Both were the Receiving Votes teams, so it's not like they're bad losses. Obviously, you do want to have some good wins under your belt. You did have that win a few weeks ago against Cumberland of Tennessee, who was Receiving Votes at the time, so definitely going to help your resume when that time does come in the season. But coming into this one again, you're on a 2-game losing streak. It's the first time this season you've had back-to-back losses. They both have been in the Southern States, so that definitely hurts a little bit. Now, they were against 2 teams that are at the top end of the Southern States in Faulkner and William Carey, respectively. One of those teams being undefeated right now in William Carey. They are giving up over 70 points in the game while they're scoring under 70 on this 2-game losing streak. That is not what they do. They pride themselves more on their defense than their offense, in my opinion, while their offense is very good, led by Ashley Dickey to name their best offensive player, in my opinion. And, you know, you also have Silky over there and a lot of other players. It just has not been good defensively. It has not been the UT Southern team that I have come to expect to see on a nightly basis, come to expect to see this season. Like I was on record saying that this was my kind of team in the Southern States to kind of break through that glass ceiling, kind of get their name in that top 3, possibly top 2 conference seeding when it's all said and done. Right now, they're not looking like it defensively. And again, matching up against 2 out of the 3 top teams that I believe are above you right now in the Southern States, that other team being the team you're going to be playing against today in Loyola, it's not a good sign. This is a making statement game, and that's why I said that. UT Southern goes out there and wins this game, even if it's by 1 point. Hey, a win is a win, and a win in the Southern States like this can come back to help you when it's all said and done. And Loyola's going to get some recognition nationally. Obviously, right now they're receiving votes. They were ranked in the top 25, number 22, I believe, in the last poll. So they're going to always be in the mix. They're going to be a team that pedigree is winning, expectation is winning. So if you get this win, it's definitely going to be something to put a nil notch on your belt. This team normally holds opponents at 35% from the field when we look at things. I mentioned the defense has been kind of not the whole, but the issue in the past 2 games. The last 2 games, the opponents are shooting over 45% from the field. It's clearly that side of the ball that's been needs to get back to what it was. And again, a statement game like this where you hold Loyola to that 40% even, not even 35, but give me 40%, give me high 30s, then, okay, we're righting the ship here. It might be a loss. You know, I do have Loyola coming out on this one. I don't think it's a shock, but it's another game where even a loss can help right the ship and get you back on track defensively to what your expectation is for this team. You have a competitive game. If it comes down to a possession or 2, a referee call or 2 that you can't control, it's tough to swallow, but you can still build off those type of losses. You don't want to get blown out. You don't want to have a game where you never felt like you had a chance. Those are the ones that really hurt because it's hard to find a reason to be, hey, we learned this about ourselves today, or hey, we figured out this, whatever the case might be. So a competitive game, even in a loss, can mean a lot for UT Southern. That's kind of what I'm looking at for this one. On the other side of things for Loyola, this will be their fourth road game of the season. Their first time going back-to-back this year, though. So will that be a wrinkle to keep an eye on? We'll see. I don't think so, but I do think it's fair to note that it's hard to win on the road. It's hard to win in hostile territory, especially in conference play. So I do think that's something to keep an eye on. They are coming off an absolutely dominant Blue Mountain Christian victory in their last game. A key player I have for them, and it kind of ties into the key stats. And I'll touch on the key stats before I get to the key players for both teams, as a matter of fact. For the key stats, the first one I have, the 3-point line. Both teams are shooting below 30% from a 3-point line, and both teams have opponents shooting under 30% as a whole. So the defense will be the key, and the 3-point line specifically will be what I'm looking at of who can take that asset away from their opponents. If UT Southern is able to make Loyola have tougher possessions, have, longer drawn-out possessions, now in the fourth quarter, those 3 balls, your leg's a little shot, not as, in rhythm as you might be in other games. Maybe those shots are starting to be long, starting to be short, whatever the case might be. On the other side of it, UT Southern's not the hottest right now defensively. So if Loyola can take advantage of that and get into some quick shots, or not quick shots, but get into some rhythm from the 3-point line early and then hold UT Southern, whose offense is going to be up there. I do think UT Southern has one of the better offenses in the Southern States. Now we're looking at a very even game of, hey, comes down to possession or two. Now you got to just hit shots. If this game comes down to who can hit more shots, it's going to be obviously a toss-up, but that's kind of what you want every basketball game like this to be. You don't want to be able to say, or you don't want to have to say, if you would have done this better, if you would have done this better. If what you can say after a game is, we should just hit more shots, it's the name of the game. It's the name of the game. Sometimes you cannot control if the shots go in. You control the shots you take. You control the confidence behind each shot, but you don't control if it goes in or not. From a layup to a three-pointer, the ball goes up. If it doesn't want to go in, it doesn't want to go in. But if that's how this game ends, where it's just we should have made more shots, you can live with that. Again, those competitive games that one possession, a bounce here or there, those are the ones you can sleep with at night a little bit easier than the blowouts that there were so many things that we could have done better. The last thing I have for the key stats, and again, it ties into the players that I'm looking at for both teams. It's going to be the offensive rebounds. Loyola's averaging 16.4 offensive rebounds, while UT Southern is losing their rebound battle as of right now by almost 3 rebounds per game, meaning that they're getting out-rebounded in total by about 3. Right? So when you look at that, I went a little deeper into the stats, and for UT Southern, I'm looking at Ramey Reed. Again, we know the names Silky, we know Ashley, we know the offensive players, but I'm looking at, again, the rebound battle is what is the biggest thing for me in this one. So I went with Ramey Reed, 14 points, still a very good offensive player, obviously a good source of buckets for the Firehawks, but 7 rebounds. She leads the team in rebounds, and I'm not putting it on her solely to clean up every offensive rebound and give her team every second chance opportunity on the offensive rebounds, but if she doesn't have or set the tone from the rebounding standpoint, then I can't expect the rest of the team to follow suit. She is the reason why this team is rebounding the ball so the way they are from a standpoint of effectively. If she doesn't have a good rebounding game, even if the rest of the team does, they're going to lose the rebound battle and they're going to lose this game. She has to have, I'm putting out there 10 rebounds this game. I would love to see a double-double for her from this game. I think it's completely in the realm of possibility. In the last 2 games, this UT Southern team has lost the rebound battle by a combined 24 rebounds. They lost to it by 16 to Faulkner, and they lost by 8 in their last game against William Carey. That is too big of a margin in the Southern States. In the Southern States where physicality reigns supreme, where you got to be able to just finish box outs, finish possessions on the defense side of the ball with rebounds. You can't give your opponent second, third, fourth opportunities. You cannot get out-rebounded by 16 and then by 8 in the very following game. That is going to be the Achilles heel for UT Southern if they do not get the rebound situation under control, which ties back to what I started with this whole segment or this whole part of the episode with defense. 99% of defense is everything else. It's communicating on pick and rolls, it's finding shooters, it's playing personnel, it's knowing what the other team's sets are in if you know what set they're running. It's making sure that you don't get blown by off the balance, making sure you're in help side, midline, all that kind of stuff. That's 99% of it. 1%, the last percent to give you 100% good possession on defense is rebounds. You can play great defense for 29 seconds. You don't get that offensive rebound when it hits the rim, guess what? You got to do it again for another 20. And you don't get on 19, you got to do it again for another 20. And eventually, it's called the 2K rule. You get 3 possessions. If by the third possession you don't get the rebound, you're either going to get a bucket scored on you, a foul called against you, or both. That's all my 2K players out there know exactly what I'm talking about. That is kind of how things work. As much as we hate to say 2K ain't real, it's real on that front. So Loyola gonna have to try and emphasize and just impose their will on that side of the ball from an offensive rebound standpoint. And then UT Southern, you got to clean up the rebounds. You clean up the rebounds, you give yourself a very, very, very good chance. An upset is completely in the realm of possibility in this game. Now, I'm not going with the upset, but it's I would say, give me 45-55 that upset that Loyola wins this game. So UT Southern is right there. 10 percentage points, in my opinion, of winning this game. Now, for Loyola, I'm looking at a player that fly under the radar possibly, but is having a really solid game, a really solid season so far, Sequoia Carroll. We know what the big three are going to give us. Diana Thornton, Alyssa Odell, and Caitlin Travis. Combined, those ladies are a walking 50 points almost. We know what they're going to give us. This is what they've been giving us all year. We know who those names. But I'm looking at Carroll because she's fourth in scoring right now. Yes, she's only played in 5 games, but in those 5 games, she's second in rebounds and first in offensive rebounds. She's the one who is going to be the X factor for Loyola and for UT Southern for that matter. She's coming off an 11.6 rebound game in 22 minutes. I see Carroll being the one that, okay, Odell got what she got, Travis got what she got, Thornton got what she got, and on the other side, you see Silky got what she got, Ashley, okay, everybody got it, whatever. But then you look at Carroll, she's flirting with double-doubles already. If she gets that double-double, if she's able to just crash the offensive glass and get buckets for herself and for her teammates, she will be the reason that the scale tips in favor of Loyola, in my opinion. That's why I'm going Loyola. I think Carroll, because of the struggles UT Southern has had so far this year, specifically in these last 2 games from rebounding the basketball, I think she's going to be able to come in and really point that out and make that a note of like, this is something that we need to address quickly, because if not, the Southern States will take advantage of it because now it's starting to become a regular thing throughout these games. Very good game on deck. Like I said, Firehawks, Wolfpack, I like it. It should be. I do have Loyola coming on top. Give me a solid 8-point game. I will say I think it's closer down the stretch, but free throws will play a factor in this one. I think the Loyola closes out with free throws and makes it an 8-point game, but we're really looking at more of a 4-point feel, but it's going to end up being an 8-point game with some free throws down the stretch. Last game that we're going to talk about in depth before I quick hit some of these other games here. The most interesting game for me. Dakota Wesleyan, number 14, versus number 9, Concordia. We had 2 p.m. Central Time. So we got 1 p.m., 3 p.m. should be Eastern Time. These time zones kind of get me mixed up sometimes. For Concordia, this is a statement game for you. The GPAC this is the order. It's Dordt, Briarcliff. In the past, and for the better part of at least when I've been around NAIA with basketball, it's been Dakota Wesleyan. Like it's very safe to say. I don't think it's been a crazy, wow, that's a hot take. But this year's not the case. Dakota Wesleyan hasn't been sniffing the top 10 in the polls all year. Concordia went from unranked to in the top 25. Then they went to the top 10. The Bulldogs have had a season. They're putting wins and wins and wins, just racking them up in dominant fashion. You win this game, you have clearly been the number 3 best team in the GPAC. You win this game, you solidify yourself as the 3rd best team in the GPAC, and now you start talking about, okay, can they beat a Briarcliff? Could they upset a Dordt, especially at their place? They're leading the conference right now in points at 95. I'm giving them the 0.3 points, 95 points per game. They've had 8 games over 80. They've had 4 games over 90. They have 10 players at or over 5 points per game and 3 players at 10 points per game or more. The reason I point that out is because you have a complete contribution on the offensive side of the ball. It's not just 3 main players and then everybody else. It goes from 18 to 15 to 13 and then just like 4s and 3s. No, it is a complete team effort. And another note that people might overlook on this one, when I was looking at the stats, 12 players are averaging 10-plus minutes. The highest player on this team, who is Kirsten Vilsmeyer, when it comes to minutes, is 20.7. From a coaching standpoint, for those that might not understand how important that is, that means that your best player, arguably, is not even scratching 3/4 of play. They're playing a half, and you're still one of the best teams in the country. You're still in conversation of being in the argument, in the conversation of the Briarcliffs and the Dorts of the GPAC. not going to say the country, but of the GPAC. That is an impressive feat, and why I go back to the boxes are all checked. Great team defense, great team offense, contributions from across the board. You've got a very good player that we're going to talk about in a minute here that I mentioned in Kirsten. It's all there. I just need a win to get me to push you into that. This isn't just a fun season. Hey, let's have it. No. The Bulldogs are here to ball. They're here to hoop, and they want to take names no matter what the name across the other team's jersey is. This is that first game that will set up when they play a Briarcliff, when they play a Dordt. You win this game, I'd be more inclined to say, you know what, give me the upset in those games. Now you lose this game. I'm not saying, it's a fluke. It's not. No. But you kind of, all right, well, now you go from a team that, hey, they're frisky. Hey, this is going to be, to now, all right, they're a really good team that can win the games they're supposed to win emphatically. How do you fare against those really good teams? How do you fare against the true contenders in your conference? That's what a loss does, in my opinion, for Concordia, or at least for my sake. We'll talk about that key player, like I mentioned, in a minute here. First, the Tigers of Dakota Wesleyan. Tigers are 3-1 in their last 4 games. They're on a really little bit of a solid stretch here because, in my opinion, your only loss to Dakota State. It was a very close game until the end out there, obviously. You had a big win over Briarcliff. 9 points. And kind of my last note for Concordia and kind of ties in with Dakota Wesleyan. If y'all compete in this game, if this game is close, which I do think it will be, well, let's say Concordia does win over Dakota Wesleyan. Will Dakota Wesleyan beat Briarcliff at Briarcliff? Okay. So in theory, Concordia's got a really good chance at beating Briarcliff. Dakota Wesleyan already proved they can beat Briarcliff, so maybe we're looking at number 2, number 3 in the conference right now in this game. It's not the craziest thing. I've said crazier. So there's a lot of under the surface, implications in this one from a mental standpoint, from a momentum standpoint down the stretch in the conference play here. But back to the Tigers, in the middle of a 4-game road trip, this will be game number 3, so that's also another note that we got to kind of highlight here. It's tough to play on the road in the GPAC, especially, in this time of year. It's getting a little colder. Things are getting a little harder to stay warm. The Tigers are 6th worst, though, in guarding the 3-point line. 31% are what opponents are shooting right now this season. The Bulldogs are the best 3-point shooting team in the conference. Kind of see where I'm going with this for that first key stat. It is the 3-point line. The Tigers are 8th in 3-point field goal percentage for themselves at 29.5, but on the road, they would be the 2nd lowest in the conference at 23%. 2nd lowest. This is a road game for them. So it's kind of similar to what we talked about when we said Indiana Wesleyan and Huntington. That matters. If you would have told me the numbers are even, road and home, and the splits, all right, cool. I'm not really going to talk about it too much. But when there's that much of a gap, I got to mention it. And that's why we're looking at that. And the other point that I'll make before talking about some key players, because they kind of go hand in hand but on opposite ends. Concordia and Dakota Wesleyan are number 1, number 2 in the conference, respectively, in assists. The reason I bring that up is because what I talked about with Concordia. When you look at Concordia, it is a complete team effort. Again, your best player is playing 2 quarters. They're playing a half. You're not even touching 3 quarters of play on average. So that means that you're moving the ball. That means everybody's getting involved. That means that everybody's getting into a rhythm. That means your assists are going to be high. Dakota Wesleyan, kind of a similar situation. You're getting contributions from everybody across the court. You're getting contributions from everybody on your rotation, so your assists are going to be very high. Whichever team, which I know when it comes to assists, you can't necessarily put too much emphasis into it because it's a two-way street. You got to make good passes and you got to hit shots. So I get that. But at the same time, that's kind of what I'm talking about. If the team that loses this game will be the team that can't find a rhythm offensively from moving the ball side to side. For me, an assist is if I get a ball from my teammate and I take 2 or less dribbles, that's an assist to my teammate in my book. So 3 dribbles or more, that's no longer an assist. I had to create that shot for myself. If the team that loses this game has more of those where a few extra dribbles that you kind of had to take, not the ones that you shouldn't have taken, but you have to take it because the defense is that good from the other side of the baseline or the half court line, that's the team that's going to end up winning the game. That's the team that just couldn't find a rhythm, couldn't find a flow, couldn't get themselves going. That's the team that's going to win. And the reason I say the key players for last is because for Dakota Wesleyan, I'm looking at Emma Yost. And for Concordia, obviously I mentioned already Kirsten Vilsmeyer. For Kirsten, 14 points a game almost on his 59% shooting from the field, 50% from a 3-point line, coming off of her 2nd game of the season where she's under 10 points. They've played about 9 games, I believe. So out of the 9 games, 7 of them have been over 10 points. It's normally that is the norm for her. But again, when I say The girl barely plays 3 quarters. She's barely playing 2 quarters. She's at 20.7. So she's barely getting over 20 minutes of action. It shows just how deep this team really is. She also played the third lowest minutes that game, which kind of shows why she didn't have over 10 points, because the girl's going to get her 10 points regardless if she's out there that long. But she doesn't need to be. So she's fresh coming into this game. Her teammates, a lot of those stars are going to be fresh coming into this game. But you got to keep that in mind when you're talking about these conference games. If coaches are able to rest some of their key players in these other games, Dakota Wesleyan's coming off of a tough game against Dakota State. That's a very important note to give. It can't always just be in a vacuum. Like you gotta have to pick. You're gonna pick and choose when you're in a vacuum, when you're looking at other things. But when you pick it is very important. If I was talking about Dakota Wesleyan coming off of a game that was a couple of days ago, that's a little different. But this game wasn't that long ago, so there's still that level of hangover, I think, that can be a factor here. Maybe on a lower end, but it's still there, and especially in the close games I'd expect this to be. I think you definitely have to talk about that. For the Tigers, I'm looking at Emma Yost, like I mentioned, 17 points per game, 51% from the field, 50% from the 3-point line, 8 straight double-figure scoring games. So she's on a little bit of a heater right now. She's on a little bit of a streak here when we talk about offensively, putting the ball in the basket. Can that continue? And the reason I talk about these two players is because while the assists are what I'm looking at, there will be times when your best players need to make plays. Everybody knows, especially at this level, yes, we all love to play, beautiful basketball, move the ball, all this stuff. I get that. I'm here for it. I want that. Basketball is a beautiful thing when all 5 people are a part of the offense and the defense. Don't get it twisted. Basketball and defense can be very beautiful too. But there come runs, stretches, whatever the case might be, where you just got to give the ball to your best players, run whatever set they feel comfortable with to get the ball in their spot, and say, stop the bleeding. Get us a bucket. We need one. It's been a couple possessions for both teams where we haven't scored. We need a bucket here. We're going to run this for so-and-so to get her a touch on the block, to get her a touch on the wing, whatever the case might be. That's where Kirsten and Emma Yost, in my opinion, are going to come in. They need to be the ones to make big plays when they matter, when they need it. Whether it's the first quarter, second or third, or the fourth quarter. 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter, 2 seconds left in the first quarter. Whatever the case is, whatever that moment calls. Because it's not always about who hit the game winner, who hit the go-ahead bucket. It's about the 4-point game. We can't get a bucket. The team is on a run. Oh, they went 6-0 run by themselves. Quick, pow. Now this is where someone comes in. We get a bucket. And we might forget about that because it was in the middle of the second quarter when there was still 3 medias left to go and so many other timeouts and so many other things. But that's a big moment. Because now, whether I get a 2 or a 3, if I get a 3, it's back to one possession game just like that. I get a 2, all right, it's a 4-point game. We're good with that. Those are just as clutch, in my opinion, maybe even more clutch, because you can't get to the game winners and stuff without those plays in the middle of the game. This is going to be a very good game. I'm going to go Concordia. Give me the Bulldogs in a statement win of 2 points. This is going to be a one-possession game. 2 points, a free throw, 3 points, whatever. It's a one-possession game when it's all said and done, because this game is going to have teams that they feel the need to win this game. Not a desire. They need to win this game, respectively, for different reasons, but at the same time, the same reason, to prove they are the team that can be the ones to knock off the defenders. Because again, everybody in the GPAC is chasing Dort. Everybody in the country is chasing Dort. It's not a secret. That is the case. Until they're knocked off, they are the bar for everybody in the NAIA women's basketball world. The first line of defense, though, against the defenders, is the GPAC. Can there be someone other than Dort to get out of the GPAC as the automatic bid winners from the conference tournament? This game could be the first kind of preview of that. This could be a semifinals preview in the GPAC. Completely, like that's what we're looking at right here, possibly. So we got to see how close this game really is. I'm going to be locked in for this one for sure. Last thing we're going to do here, talked about new segment. It's flat out call outs. I'm calling out some players, some teams, whatever the case might be. This is literally just a quick hit of teams that I feel like, specifically teams today, like I said, in the future, could be players. But these are teams that I think need to get a little more, like understand the moment that's in front of you. Right? I got 4 games lined up again all Saturday, going along with the theme of the day. First one, staying in the GPAC. Receiving votes Northwestern versus receiving votes Hastings. I did not pick a call out for both teams. I only picked one because I think both is kind of a cop out. Now, I'm going to put some pressure on myself and I'm going to make a decision. The same exact reason that I talked about the Dakota Wesleyan versus Concordia game is the same thing I'm going to say for this receiving votes matchup between Hastings and Northwestern. It's a message sending opportunity for both teams. I'm going to lean more to Northwestern. Why? Because you are a little more of a surprise this year than Hastings was. Hastings came into the season, one of the best teams last year in the NAIA. They had a great run in the national tournament. They came in ranked in the top 25. They're still ranked in the top 25. They're in receiving votes now, but they were there. Northwestern wasn't really picked to be this good, in my opinion. No one told me that, hey, Northwestern about to have a great season. Didn't talk to everybody, but I talked to a few people. So you have a chance to send a message. Now, Concordia and Dakota Western are the message that's going to be sent is going to be from the top of the conference. This message, more about the middle of the pack, but this is the middle of the pack in the GPAC is just as dangerous. In the middle of the pack of any conference is dangerous because that 4, 5, 6 seed, you get hot, you got a chance. So you can't overstate that. You can't overestimate that, I should say. Northwestern has a chance to be able to send a message here with another team that I believe they see right eye level. This is going to be a very even matchup. Going to be a really good game. I can't wait to find out who wins this one. I'm going to go Northwestern because I think they have a little more chip on their shoulder than Hastings does. But another one-possession game of the GPAC. Second game, receiving votes, William Carey versus Blue Mountain Christian. I'm calling out William Carey, which is crazy to call out a team that's 7-0 right now, receiving votes, and could be looking at a top 25 number next to their name in the next polls in about a week's time. But that's why I'm calling you out. Handle business. Go 8-0. Like, there's no reason that you should not be one of the last remaining teams that is undefeated when I come back on in a couple days, or I come back to look at the polls next week. Be another undefeated team. St. Francis just dropped. St. Francis of Indiana, I should say, just dropped. So you've got only a few left. William Carey has a chance to solidify their spot, not only in the Southern States with another win. They are the favorites. I'm not going to say they're not the favorites, but send a message. Go 8-0. Be perfect in conference. Continue the winning streak as long as you can because you're going to need it. You're going to need it because this win solidifies yourself in the Southern States, and it also puts me, again, they win this game, I 100% see them being a top 25 team when the polls come out on Wednesday. 2 games left. We're heading up north. Going to the frontier. Lewis and Clark, number 10 in the country as of right now, versus receiving votes College of Idaho. Now, you're looking at this game, and in my opinion, it's pretty obviously Lewis and Clark State. They need this win. And in my opinion, you need a dominant win. You've gotten upset 2 times now in the season against Rio Grande. My opinion, not really an upset. I do believe Rio Grande is a better team. And then you got upset by, if I remember off the top of my head, it was Rocky Mountain. Rocky Mountain was a team. I believe that was the team that upset Lewis and Clark State in the Carroll Classic a few weeks ago. Again, so many games, it's hard to keep track of all of them. But I know they were upset because, again, they went 1-1 in that, and they lost an upset because all the teams that played in that were under them in the rankings. So that's 2 upsets on the schedule. One I kind of understand. Another one, I think you should have won that one, in my opinion, but actually might have been Carroll. I've just gone through every team in the Carroll Classic. Pretty sure it was Carroll, actually. I'm going to go back and say it was Carroll. It was number 16 in the country right now, and actually the other game that I have as a call-out. For Lewis and Clark State, you need a dominant win here to send a message to the Cascade as a conference and selection committee and the voters and all that kind of stuff. Like, hey, yes, we haven't had a great showing in some of these marquee games, but we're still better than the rest of the teams that we have on our schedule. That's the message you got to stand with a dominant win here. And I mean dominant by 20 or more. 20 or more. College of Idaho, in my opinion, didn't start out the greatest. Obviously, started out 0-2. They were receiving votes, and they weren't. Now they're back in the picture, and I think they are better than most receiving votes teams out there. I know they just made the polls last time, but again, we know how the polls can be sometimes. They are a very good team, which is why a dominant win sends a message of, hey, we're right. We're back to what we need to be. We're back to the state, to the expectations of, hey, we need to compete. We need to dominate games. We need to be able to come out on top in these marquee top 25 matchups, possible national tournament, conference previews, whatever the way you want to word it. And I've said it before, I'm going to continue to say it. Me personally, I think these games say more than a number 1 versus number 2 in your conference. Why? It's easy to get up for those games. It's easy to get up for a game when I'm playing against the number 1 team in the country, when I'm playing against the number 10 team in the country. It's easy. Like, College of Idaho is excited for this game. I know they are, because they get to send a message in their own right. But for Lewis and Clark, for me, I'm looking at it, if you can't handle, like, when you play marquee games, you're not supposed to win all of them. You're not going to win all of them. You like to win some of them. You're not going to win all of them. So I get that. But you need to win these games, because now you're putting yourself behind the 8 ball when it comes to conference standings. You're putting yourself behind the 8 ball when it comes to the resume situation in the postseason and at large, all that kind of, like, you're putting yourself behind the 8 ball. The marquee games are 50-50. They could go either way. But these games, you've got to be able to come out on top in those games. So that's why I'm going Lewis and Clark for my call out for the for the Cascade conference. Last one, Carroll, Montana Tech. Talked about it in a moment for a brief second there. It's not just Carroll, though. I know I kind of said that I wouldn't go either. I wouldn't pick one. If you forced me to pick, I would go Carroll. But I'm going to go Carroll and Montana Tech. Actually, you know what? I think Carroll's actually had a really solid season. They've had some tough losses for sure. But I'm actually going to flip it. I'm flipping it right now. Give me Montana Tech. Montana Tech got to get this game. It's a get right game in the sense of, you win this game, it's hard to put into words. It's hard to explain what I'm trying to say. But I truly believe this is an even matchup. This is a game that can and should be a launch pad for either of these teams. If you're Carroll, you've now kind of solidified a little bit more grasp in a loaded and deep Frontier Conference in the second seed. I think like 4 or 5 teams right now are 2-1. I'm recording this Friday evening, so there are some games that are going to be played tonight that will sway that, obviously. But as of right now, when I'm recording this, there's like 4 or 5 teams that are 2-1. Some of them are competing right now. Some of them against each other, so obviously that'll change. But that's kind of where I'm talking about right now. For Montana Tech, you're in the same boat. You're 2-1 right now in the conference as well. You know, you are top 25 in the country. You are looking at yourself as, hey, we're here. We can do this. We can be one of the top 4 teams in a conference that I feel is about to get some real recognition nationally for what they're going to do. This is the Wild Wild West. That is the name I'm giving this conference moving forward, because anything can and will happen. But for that same reason, you have to go through some of these games. I would call this a marquee game in terms of Frontier Conference supremacy. Yeah, granted, it is a top 25 matchup, obviously. But in terms of Frontier Conference supremacy, this is for sure a marquee game. Because this is a game that could go either way. This is a game that you need to try and figure out, which is why for Carroll to get that game that they got earlier this year against Bismarck is important. Kind of mirror images of what I talked about. I talked about Lewis and Clark and College of Idaho a few moments ago about you got to have those games. Because on the other side, when you play these marquee matchups, in my opinion, you know what's going to happen. So I had Carroll coming into this recording session. Thought about going both of them, even though I said I wouldn't. And I finally ended up going Montana Tech, because this game, a loss for Montana Tech, I think hurts more than a win for Carroll, than a loss for Carroll would. And a win for Montana Tech pushes the envelope more than a win for Carroll does. I think a win for Carroll is expected. I think a win for Carroll is kind of what people would likely say was going to happen, which is why I'm going Montana Tech in a 1-point game. 1-point game. I think that's how close this game is, and I think that's how it's separated when it's all said and done. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Hoop Report. Again, top 3 most interesting games of this Saturday, as well as some call-outs that I have for certain teams that I think either not necessarily that you're underperforming. You could be performing very well. You could be undefeated, but I still think this is an opportunity to continue to emphasize and continue to push that narrative. Hey, we are that good, or hey, we're ready to get back to what we can be to, or hey, we're going to right the ship and turn the corner here, whatever the case might be. So appreciate y'all for tuning in. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch y'all in the next one.